My name is Chris Benner, and I'll be your host today. It's my pleasure to welcome the talented Tiffany Bachmeier, who will be taking all of your AutoCAD electrical questions today. We'll start off with some quick introductions. Like I said, my name's Chris. I'm the Community Manager for Product Design and Manufacturing here at Autodesk. I've been with Autodesk for just over a year, and before joining the team, I was a customer and a user for over 20 years. So next, let me hand it over to Tiffany to introduce herself, and then I'll be back to take care of some items before we let Tiffany take over for the rest of the session. So Tiff.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Chris, and welcome everybody. Good to see you all again. I see lots of familiar faces and names, so I love seeing that whenever we have these monthly meetups together. We probably need to update this slide. My role has actually changed since our last meetup. I am still leading our manufacturing consulting team. I'm also leading our global media and entertainment team. So I have our media and entertainment solutions in our group as well. So it's exciting to be able to have that join into my team and to start expanding the purview of what we're doing in our spaces. But here I am your AutoCAD electrical expert, and I'm actually joined by another resident AutoCAD electrical expert and a very good friend and former colleague of mine, now new colleague again, Tifani Weisbrod. So yes, you get dual Tiffany's. That will be a story for another time, but I will be having her join me more on this, as well as we'll still have Matt Durst. He's on vacation today. We'll let him have some vacation time. That's an important thing. But he will still be joining us to be able to answer vault questions. But I really wanted to just introduce everybody to the other Tiffany. We were known in our previous job as T1 and T2. I am actually the 2. So you can use that, or we'll just be known as the Tiffs, however you want to do it. But we're excited to have Tiffany on board and be able to start expanding even what we're supporting from an AutoCAD electrical standpoint across Autodesk globally. And I'm super, super excited to have her join these meetups as well. So back to you, Chris.
All right, thanks, Tiff and Tiff. Tiff 1 and Tiff 2. So some housekeeping items before we get started today. Everyone's line is muted to reduce background noise. We invite you to keep your camera turned on, though, if you're comfortable doing so. The session should be thought of as a conversation. So if you have a question or a comment, please use the Zoom raise hand function and our moderator will unmute you. Tiffany's going to be taking questions throughout the session and we'll use those to guide the discussion. So you can also type your questions in the chat at any time and we'll be keeping an eye on that. The session is being recorded and will be emailed to all attendees and uploaded to the community conversation site. Please note that by participating in this session, you are consenting to being recorded. So very quickly, our safe harbor statement. If we make any forward-looking statements in this session, please do not make any purchasing decisions based on those statements. If you are in the process of making purchasing decisions, look at the software in its state today and that alone. So just a quick bit about this series for those of you who are joining us for the first time. Community conversations provide opportunities for engineers, designers, artists, and makers to meet in a safe, live, virtual setting to share expertise, get to know leaders in their field, and grow their community network. The sessions are always supported by Autodesk community managers to help guide the conversation, feed important insights back from the community to Autodesk, and to support participants in getting connected to the expertise they need. If you have an idea for one of these sessions that you think you'd like to host, submit a proposal using the link that I'm hoping Kate will post in the chat now. We're always looking forward to add to these great community conversations and we'd love to hear your ideas. So that's enough for me. I'm going to hand the session back over to T1 and T2. So here we go.
Thank you so much, Chris. And wow, Tiff, it's been a long time since I heard anybody refer to us as that. So this is entertaining to be back in this world. I love it. No, I invited it by sharing that of the nicknames. It was just fun to hear it. All right. It's been, gosh, how many years? It's been since 2015 since she and I worked together. So it's fun to bring the band back together. As always with this session, as Chris said, this is open Q&A, open discussion. So happy to have you all fill in into the chat pane, or you're welcome to raise your hand and ask your question live. So I typically wait to start seeing some of those things start popping up, just so that we can start answering those questions and we can start diving in. Or if anybody, the last session was actually very interactive. It was great to have you all participating the way you did, and we actually got a lot of fueling of other people that were participating and kind of offering some suggestions and things that they're doing in electrical today. So I want to welcome that as well. If there's something that you've done that's new that you want to be able to share out, or if there's any additional things that that you think would be beneficial for the whole team to hear, or even to get feedback on, happy to have you do that. So I'm keeping an eye on the pane. I'm not seeing a ton of updates yet. I will give this teaser as well. I know we've talked over the last couple sessions, for those that have attended, about doing a bit of a what's new in 2022 AutoCAD Electrical. I did not pull that together for today's session. I know that we tend to have a bit lighter attendance in the summer months. I think Chris is probably going to talk about this, that we are taking a break next month, but I'm sure he'll wrap that in the wrap up to talk more about that. So probably we will save it for our September meetup, but I'll give you a little hint. There's been quite a bit of content updating. So a lot of manufacturers, if you all didn't know this, and I'll just keep putting this in as I'm waiting to kind of see more questions pop in. The way that we work with our manufacturers, Autodesk doesn't just populate the catalog data and all of the symbol libraries. We actually work with all of the manufacturers very directly to get the updates. Do they want their catalogs updated? What information do they want changed? And we work with a team at their company to be able to say, what does that data need to look like? How does it? So it comes directly from the manufacturer, and then we just put it in the software, which is actually, I think, a really, really great working relationship that we have. And then we get it direct from the manufacturer themselves. There's no cost to a manufacturer doing this. It's all about, hey, we know that our customers are utilizing your software, and we want to put more of our content in there. And it's a really great way to team up and work with them. So we have a lot of updated information from Rockwell, from Schneider Electric, and from other, I think Eaton added this year as well. So we've had quite a bit of content updating. So I'm excited to share more details on that with you in our next session. But look for that if you're utilizing 2022 already. Look for the fact that a lot has been updated from a content side. So always exciting to have those refreshes. And I know we have a safe harbor statement, so I'm probably a bit more covered, but I will just tease as well that I've been discussing, there's even some more interoperability and other things with perhaps some of those direct manufacturers' own products that they have, of how they want to integrate with electrical. So more to come on that, but there's definitely been discussions that I've been having with those customers. They're very large customers for us, as well as being partners in doing this with electrical. And so we work with them often on how we want to look at content, how the things can be supported, and what functionality is in the software. So all exciting things on that front. It looks like we have something from Mark.
Well, Mark has a question for you.
All right.
Addressed directly to Tiffany too.
I know, that was very nice. Thank you, Mark. It's very sweet. All right. I have a coworker that have finally been approved to update. Yep, we have 15 people on ACADE, each with their own unique versions. Would it be better to set up a new distribution of 2022 install and roll out for all the other users and not use the migration? I can export my profile. Yeah, I mean, so that is a great philosophical question about how to approach this, Mark. And I always love your questions. So great to see you, Mark, and great to get a question from you. So there's two schools of thought on this. I think what you're suggesting with what you would do is, especially with 15 unique versions, probably the best bet is to just have the super version that you want rolled out. You may still use the migration utility with perhaps your version. I know you're the leader for this at your company. And so, there may be things that you've done of additional content, updating of things within the catalog database, unique symbol library features that you may have that you want shared. So I could see you perhaps doing the migration and then building that as the deployment that everybody gets. But I do think it would be very hard to crowdsource all 15 of you into one version. That could be, unless you trust that every single person has followed all
no,
of the, yeah.
No, not at all.
Okay.
And
So for everybody else, what I was asking there, and I see why Mark said it, is that, if you have people that potentially built their own symbols, but didn't necessarily use all the right tools for using the symbol builder and adding all the right content, you could have a pretty messy library and even catalog database if you try to source all of that together. So maybe one of you, but I would definitely not suggest all 15. Was there more you wanted to add, Mark?
well, basically, I finally got approval to go to 2022. We have 2019.
Yay.
7 variations between 7 users, and long story made short,
Oof.
well, the install goes, we'll plug it in and say run. They walk away. Well, computers, never mind. We won't go there.
Yeah.
I think because other coworkers been working with AutoCAD for 25 years, and we wanted to work together and put together a rollout based upon what he and I have done. Now, I think that would be best to simply override everything that everybody's got and say, run with what we got, rather than just try this little tool or this little tool. Oh, well, let's tweak this. I can just see spending days fine tuning
I agree.
the machine.
Yeah.
But all right. Well, thank you.
I love the way you used the word mutation in there, Mark.
Yeah.
It's a perfect description.
It's more true than you may realize, sir. It really is.
Oh, I believe it.
I've been there. I've used ACADE a lot.
All right. Thank you for.
And my only other thing I would say, Mark, is when you're doing that, I mean, because I'm sure for those people, if they were on here, they would be cringing and panicking, like, oh, don't take away what I've already set up and what I've done. My advice would be, if they're all living on their own installs, they're very likely all sitting with C drive installs to everything. And this is just for everybody on the call. There are multiple ways, and we talk about this a lot on this call, but we always get new users, so I want to reiterate it. There are always different ways to install electrical. The standard install will always shove it directly to your C drive, which means everybody's on their own island, which works great when you're someone like me and I'm demoing and I'm doing things by myself. But if I wanted to work collaboratively with Tiff and with Chris, because we're on a project, I need us all connecting to the same databases and the same catalog browsers. And so my advice to you, Mark, is when you do this, and I know you know this, but just for everybody to know, hearing this, because this is not unique, this happens a lot in a lot of places. If you were to have this situation, I would recommend those people can keep their unique instances on their own personal computers if they need to go back to reference maybe a symbol that was there that they need to pull forward or something else, but that you really have them in their new 2022 install pointing to a network drive, or if you're set up with Vault, that it's actually all being backed up into the vault, and that you actually have your catalog and symbol libraries in your vault as well. But either way, you have them pointing to that, and they could go back and reference something in their C drive, but not be pointing to that anymore. And I think that's the critical.
That brings up one other quick. It'll be at least 6 months till we get IT on board to put our server set up with the vault and so forth.
Okay.
And so we're just going to, should we go ahead and roll out this 2022 and then try to put Vault in? What kind of issues will I run into with setting up pre-existing users into the Vault? Will I have conflicts, or will it automatically pick up on the Vault as existing and say, okay, here we go, just run with it?
I would say that you're not going to have problems moving people in 6 months to Vault. That's not a problem. What I would suggest is you try, if you have some sort of shared network drive, you can at least set everybody up to be pointing to the same catalog right now and the same symbol libraries and all the other same support files. That will make then the move to Vault a lot easier in 6 months. So if it's all in one place and then that just gets vaulted, then it's not going to be different for them. If you go back to having everybody have 15 individual installs, you're going to basically go through all of this again in 6 months moving to Vault. So that would be my only thing. Like if you can help yourself with a stepping stone of at least everybody pointing to the same network drive and then move to Vault, it's going to be smoother than basically doing exactly what you're doing right now again in 6 months.
That's the person who's been doing this with me and I were discussing, and we're basically going to create something, even if it's temporary, because
Yes.
we see the reason for it. But thank you for your input, ma'am.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. And the deployment setup that you can do with electrical allows you to predefine all of that. So if you just have that set up, that network area set up, you can create that deployment very quickly and just have them all. It doesn't take a lot of lift to do this. And so if you can do that from the get-go, you'd be in really good shape to get those other users all set up. And then the migration will be very easy for the Vault one.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I think we had
more in the chat.
Yep.
That one from Derek.
All right. Yep, I see the one from perfect. I'll read. So we recently acquired a sister company who's using ACADE. We plan to migrate to the same version and a SQL database. They're located in Lakeland and we are in Birmingham. What is the best solution for accessing the same SQL database from separate physical locations? Okay. So this is where I do wish that Matt was here, because Matt is my guy for all of these things. But I will tell you that exactly what we just talked about with Mark, when you do that setup where you're defining as a SQL database setup as opposed to the Microsoft Access database setup in electrical, it's very simple. It's an easy toggle to switch between. We have both options now for anybody listening, from 2017 on is when we got full SQL support. You can do that. That would all be defined off of you're pointing to the same SQL server, which would be you'd already set up. So that can happen from multiple locations. That's not a problem at all. You just need to make sure everybody's running off of that same deployment of electrical. So as soon as you point the SQL to the server that you're planning to do, when you define that you want to utilize the SQL databases within electrical as opposed to using the Microsoft Access databases, you point that to the server, and you guys can all be sharing across that same thing. So that should not be a challenge that you're in separate physical locations. But if there are deeper things in there, we can unpack that a bit more, and we can even lean on Matt to dig in a little bit more on those things if you have questions.
Yeah, I do. As far as maybe someone else in the call, maybe the company's had this same experience, what kind of bandwidth is required between sites? Because the SQL database, right now we have it located in Birmingham. Do we need to move that to the cloud? What do you suggest?
I was hoping that was opening to others. Is that because I can't tell, like, bandwidth wise, that's a really great question. I don't personally have the answer to that. I've not seen necessarily a specific gate for that, but it'd be awesome to hear from others on this call. What have you seen? What do you see as best practices? What are you experiencing? I saw some chats come in. I thought perhaps somebody sent it, but I don't see anything.
Somebody raised their hand. Edward Meyer raised his hand. Edward, did you have a comment?
I think it's because he sent me a question in a direct message. I'm getting some of these as direct messages.
Okay.
If there was somebody that I needed to contact to dig into this further, you mentioned Matt. How would I get in touch with Matt?
We can share this. We'll share with Matt after this call, and I'll get his thoughts on it. We may also be able to, Tiffany, there are probably some people even within the support team that we could kind of dig in to find out, like, have we seen challenges at certain bandwidths? Are there other things? So Tiff and I can talk about this and kind of take it back to some of the other team members and see if we have some other ideas just from experiences with other customers.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. All right, where are we in the list? It's always a lot of scrolling for me. Sorry here.
Michael Fedowa had a question. Talking about a messy library, does the library block number have to be listed first, or can a different name be used, like an SAP number?
So let me unpack this with a couple a couple of things. So there are different forms of library blocks within AutoCAD Electrical. These schematic symbols, so those are all the ones, if you go into your folders and you're looking at them, they start with an H or a V. Every one of them follows that format for a reason. The H or the V stands for horizontal or vertical. When we name a block exactly the name all the way through the rest of it, other than just the H and the V changing, it allows toggles that we have. There are automatic tools within electrical for swapping where it will find that same block and recognize, oh, you're putting this on a vertical wire. I need to use the vertical version of this symbol, not the horizontal version. So there is intelligence built into those symbols that make it be able to do those flips. So that is why they need to have those specific naming conventions. If you don't name them appropriately, they will still function when it comes to pulling a bill of material or things like that, but they will not utilize all of the tools that are built off of reading the names. If I were to keep unpacking into the name, the next two characters are the actual family code for the type of device. So a push button would be PB, a limit switch is LS. That tells you what family that ties to, so that when you're using that within the catalog database, I'm tying now to other limit switches or other push buttons. Now the next number in there, and I have, for anybody who has not seen this, it's something I've shared on multiple versions of these, but I have an electronic version I can share. If you see me in Vegas at AU, or now in the new locations that AU will be, I will always share them with you. But if you can see, I always have a cheat sheet naming convention for this, and I share this out as a reminder to everybody of what all of these mean. So there is a real reason why we utilize these codes. The next one is actually whether or not it's a parent or a child. That's important for which dialog box opens. Is this a parent or a child? What information am I filling out? And then the next character is actually whether or not it's normally open or normally closed. So again, we've got tools like toggle that know to swap that block for the exact same version of it with just that number character flipped from a 1 or a 2. So there's a lot of reasons why those first couple characters are really crucial. Everything pretty much past that last character I just discussed, that can be open to you making it whatever unique identifiers you want it to be. Now, back to you asking for, say, an SAP code or something like that, that typically ties specifically to our panel footprints. So everything I just discussed was for some schematic symbols because it's how they react and interact with wires within the schematics. A panel footprint, just as a reminder to everybody, for any newbies that are on here, because I always like to say that this is for beginners, intermediate, and advanced users. It's for everybody. So I like to try to cover all bases when I go into these things. But if you think about panel footprints are the physical representation of whatever those devices are, right? So they're the shape, the form. It's really crucial that they are tied to the catalog numbers that actually define what the size and shape and what they look like. The schematic symbol, a push button could be 500 different part numbers and in reality be many different sizes, right? But in schematic, it doesn't matter. We just show it as a push button. So that we would typically never tie to an SAP number. The actual panel footprints could be. You can name those however you want. The standard definition for them within what comes with the AutoCAD electrical database is that it's by manufacturer and then the part number associated with it. Now we have a lot of wild cards that we tie into this so that you can, if a standard Allen Bradley push button, that same physical representation is used for 50 of their part numbers because it's the same location. It just has different tools or capabilities on it, but it doesn't change the size for how it's going to show up on screen. Then we use that to make it easy for wildcards so you don't have to build 50 blocks for every one of those part numbers. But if it's an SAP code that you want to be able to utilize or something else that you want to tie it to, you can absolutely name them for that. So panel footprints have a very different naming flexibility compared to what we want to do when we are looking at our schematic symbols. Does that make sense? Hopefully. All right. All good there. But hopefully you understand too the difference there. There are different kinds of blocks that we really build. And the symbol builder within electrical really helps you define that. The symbol builder pre-builds all those hard-coded characters that you need in your schematic symbols. And when it comes to a panel footprint, a lot of times it just throws an FP in there for footprint, and you can make it whatever you want. It doesn't need that FP. That is just a placeholder for you to really put into catalog information that it's defined for. All right, so that was Michael's. Let's see.
To Norman.
I think there was one right before him that came in as a direct message to me. So I know you can't see it. Thank you, Chris. Sorry. So Edward, I think you said in the vault, can you set up a directory so that it does not do a read only on the local drive after a get files? So I am not a vault expert, and I don't play one on TV, but I can tell you that I can ask those questions. I do believe that there is a yes to that. So because of the way that you can define user profiles for Vault, you can define if others are getting things read only, but you have certain, I like to call them affectionately, librarians within your company that actually get full read write access to those files, but they still have access to them to utilize them in electrical, just so that you don't necessarily have 50 people editing catalog databases or symbol libraries, but they're able to use and consume them. So the answer, I believe, is yes to that. I don't see any reason why we can't say yes to that, but the how to do that, I just need to, I'll pull in one of my Vault experts to be able to answer that further for you, Edward.
It depends really on the level of control that you want to have.
Yeah.
You can set those permissions on either the person's role in the vault, or you can set them directly on the folder where those symbols are being kept and give only certain people certain permissions on there. So there's a number of different ways it can be achieved. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say.
Thank you, Chris. Brilliant. I appreciate that. All right, I know the one day that we lose Matt's normally always here, and Matt is on vacation. He actually pinged me yesterday and said, do you need me to join it anyway? I'm like, no, go enjoy your vacation. So sorry for not having the Vault answers on this one, guys, but we will get that done.
I know a little bit about Vault, but not as much as Matt.
Good deal. Thank you, Chris. Awesome. Okay, now I think it's on to Norman's. All right, will ACADE start to support a common file format for exchanging automation data like AML for PLC import and export options to Allen Bradley Studio 5000? That is a fantastic question. I cannot confirm or deny that we will do that, but I can tell you that it is under discussion. So let's just put it that way. We work very, very closely with Rockwell. They are a very large named account user for us. They have an EBA with Autodesk. We work very closely with them. And we're always talking about how can we better support back and forth. There's things that they're doing what they utilize ACADE for, and then as well as what they're doing to support all of their customers utilizing AutoCAD Electrical as well, and how we can have even more interaction with that. So more to come in the future, but that's a great question, and I love that you're asking it. And I will definitely share it back that it was even brought up on this call with the product team so that we know that there's interest in things. So always bring those things to this call, because I do talk to the product team quite a bit about future opportunities and things that we might be able to do to bring even more tools back to you all. All right. Okay, the next one was Kate's post. Yeah, okay, Patrick, I think. So I got a direct message from Patrick, so let's go to this one. I'm new to AutoCAD Electrical, just finished the 10 module ACADE E course. Good. And where you go from there in terms of learning. Great. So I'm assuming you're talking about the one that we put up on our open source learning, our talent LMS system, or our Learning Central. I recorded that last Christmas. So thank you for taking yourself through that. You're the first that I've actually heard has gone through it. So excited that you did that. Would love to unpack maybe what your experience was on a later conversation. But I would say your next steps really are starting to put it into production. So, get that first project up and running, maybe build yourself a template project. For those of you that didn't know, I recorded was it even yeah, I think gosh, now it's blending together. It might've been a year and a half ago. But I recorded basically what I would do in my AutoCAD Electrical Essentials courses that I used to teach. They're typically a 3 to 4 day full class. I did a very bite-sized, just the lecture only part of it, but then we gave you exercises to go along with it to be able to consume in bite-sized chunks, to be able to go into those different modules and learn about all the things that we would typically take somebody through fully in an essentials course. But being able to just consume it in small pieces if you needed to brush up in other areas as well. So my advice then from that is the first step to anything is starting to build out your first install. So a lot of times I tell people not even to take training before they actually fully install, or after you've taken the training, you may need to do some tweaks to your install. Because if you just installed on your C drive, as we were just talking about, which is the standard install, you may need to do what Mark was just asking, where you need to connect multiple users, and you really need to put that through more of a network install, where you're sharing all the support files and getting yourself set up for that. That is step one. Step two is then building what I call your template project. So you need templates like DWT files, like we've always had inside of vanilla AutoCAD, but those would carry a lot of things like your title block, your standard setup to electrical. You may have a few of those for different versions or sizes that you may use, but then actually building a full template project. So build what would be your perfect project. Maybe your company has 5 standard projects, maybe it's 10, maybe it's 1. But it tweaks from there based off of customer requirements or internal customer requirements of how things may be needed for different installs or different jobs or different situations. But there's typically always one that's like, in a perfect world, when we're designing X or Y, whatever it is that you design, this is our standard layout in a perfect world if there were no other constraints or customer requirements or other things. Build that as your template project and build it from scratch. I highly recommend you don't try to convert things from vanilla AutoCAD or from other systems. Build it from scratch, because then you will have a fully intelligent system. You can utilize your other things that you had, like if you had blocks in vanilla AutoCAD, you can bring those forward and turn them into intelligent blocks. You can utilize all of that. And there are conversion tools in electrical, but my advice when somebody's starting from scratch is to actually build your first project 100% from scratch. It gives you an opportunity to refresh your design and maybe not pull things forward that have just been there that you haven't taken the time to be able to really update, because that happens. We're all busy. It's get it out. What's the time to market? I'm going to do this as fast as possible. But it gives you a chance to refresh what is the perfect schematic and panel setup that we really want to show. How do we want our drawings to look? How do we want to do this? And fully utilize as much out of the box as you can from electrical. Don't, if your push buttons don't look exactly like the out of the box push buttons, I would challenge you to use the out of the box ones. They've been built off of the standards. For those of you that don't know this, we have the US standards, the international standards, as well as Australian, Japanese, and Chinese standards, all that come with the software. We also have the US standards in both metric and imperial format, and they're all based off of the latest code from the governmental codes that come out. So with the US standards, we have it all up to speed with the IEEE 315, 315A, as well as the NFPA 79 standards that came out. So they get updated with all of those things. So my challenge to you is don't reinvent the wheel if you don't have to. Utilize the out of the box things. They are standard. So other companies are all doing this. So a push button looks like a push button everywhere, right? And then build that and then figure out what new things you need. What custom distribution blocks or other things do you need to add in? Get those built and put into not only your libraries, but also into that template project. And then that becomes your foundation for everything that you need to build from thenceforth. So that first project may take some more time. That's the ROI. There's going to be an ROI in there. You're going to have to spend a little time, but the actual return on investment happens afterwards when you can copy that project and make that your next project. And then you use all the automation tools of electrical to do quick swap outs or updates. You don't have to do anything manually. It's really easy. And now your time to market is so much faster because you spent that time to really build a fully functional, fully automated, and fully intelligent set of drawings fully in electrical. So I'm sorry, Patrick, that was long-winded, but that would be my advice on your next steps, is really getting that template project done and going, and then you'll be able to set yourself up. And as it comes to where I'm sure your question really was leading was, what are my next tutorials to take? You'll figure that out as you build your first project. Everything in that first training class should give you the foundation for really building a standard project, taking you through schematics, panel design, all of that. your next steps could be, do you want your panel design to fully be 3D and you want to do that in Inventor? Maybe the next step is you get more familiar with Inventor and the tools within Inventor so that you don't do your panel design in electrical, you do the schematics in electrical, but that auto connects into Inventor and you're doing full 3D representations of your panel designs, and that you're doing, you know, full 3D wire routing. You can get wire lengths and cable lengths and everything else. I mean, that's probably a very big next step. Many people are moving to that mentality as opposed to having their panel layouts in 3D. And by the way, for anybody who's new to electrical, when I talk about panels do not have to actually be physical enclosures. They can also be, I started in conveyor design. It can also be the conveyor, the 3D representation of where all of those devices are along a conveyor. So when we in electrical call things panel, that's because the tools there are your layout tools, but they're all referenced as panel. It is way more than just the actual enclosure panels, just so you know. So, and that's really where the 3D aspect comes in. Am I wire routing this? Is this an electric seat in a car? And I want to see it actually route through how it has to go. Is this a conveyor? Then I want to see the full conveyor in 3D and where those systems are. You're like, it doesn't have to be just an enclosure panel. So those would be next steps. There's also lots of tutorials within the help menu of electrical into the more advanced things that you might do, looking at the circuit builder tools, looking at the automation of the PLC, the spreadsheet to PLC IO utility. So there's lots of things to start utilizing after you get that foundation. But a lot of that lives right within the software, and you can find those tutorials right in there. So that would be, those would be all my next step advices. So great question. Thank you for that. Okay, Scotty, it looks like you are next on this list. And this is, okay, bear with me, everybody. This is a bit long, but I want to make sure I capture everything from his question. So installation help, ACADE integration understanding needed. Okay, my local IT person indicated that he recently updated our AutoCAD Lite software. So I'm assuming you mean LT. Fun fact, and not to call you out, just a little fun fact for trivia. If you ever get thrown into a trivia class at Autodesk University, LT actually stands for limited. Fun fact. But yes, it is a light version. So I fully respect why you called it light. All good. To be full AutoCAD, that's great. I was overjoyed to read that AutoCAD Electrical was now a part of the main offering and not a standalone purchase. It is, yes. So if everybody didn't know that, the one AutoCAD has what all of its verticals now a part of its conglomerate is just, it's all a part of the tool sets that come with AutoCAD. So awesome call out there. So I think I just got AutoCAD Electrical for free, hooray, but I don't see anything in the currently installed in the AutoCAD menus. Maybe I did not get it installed. How do I help my IT person install AutoCAD Electrical add-on? Where should I tell him to look to find the installer? I looked around through the directories on the target computer, but I didn't see anything right off of the bat. Thank you. Okay, this is a fantastic question. So it kind of depends on how you approach your installations, but technically your owner, so your IT guy that has access to all of your Autodesk licenses and your installation files. And I don't know if you're an EBA customer that does this tokenized or if you have it on subscription. So we'd have to dig into kind of how your installers are given to you, but you would then have you would have base AutoCAD, but all of the verticals then available as an installer in your main software access area. So your IT person should be able to help you do this. And then you should be able to access AutoCAD Electrical to install it directly to be able to have then all the symbol libraries and everything else come in. So good call out that you don't just see it in drop-down menus. You do need to install it still as its own installer, but it is a part of AutoCAD. So by having AutoCAD, you have all the verticals, which by the way, for everybody else includes mechanical, architectural, P&ID. There's all the other AutoCADs are in there. So that's exciting. So I would work with your IT person to look for it. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Chris.
I think you can find all of the verticals, the installers for them on your Autodesk account page as well.
That's what I was saying, but I don't know how. I think everybody kind of has account pages set up a little differently. So you may just need to work with your IT person to find it. But yes, exactly, Chris. Good deal. And excited for you that you get it now. Yay. That's awesome. And it sounds like from your message that you're excited too. So I'm always happy to hear that. All right. What else do we see here? Okay. Thank you for the thank yous, everybody. I'm noticing those in the chat, so I appreciate that. Okay, I think we actually got through the list, and thank you for posting the links as well to those disciplines. That's awesome. Good deal. Any other questions? I'm always happy to also give people time back in their day. I know this is a full hour and I always appreciate you being here. So if we're not flooded, that's fine too. We can give you time back, but I always want to make sure that I have the time to cover everything. I'll wait for just a second to see if there are any additional things coming in.
There we go.
All right. Our department is working on creating symbols and blocks for our enclosure and panel layout components. Is there a resource for panel footprints in the DWG format? Yes. So Gary, I would strongly, if you haven't seen it, we come with 2,000, we're actually probably closer to 3,000 now blocks that come with AutoCAD Electrical, both for schematics and for panel footprint. So we have very extensive panel footprint libraries. So I would make sure that you actually have all your libraries in a location that you're accessing, that you're seeing them. You may even need to go back and look at your installs to see where that is, but they should all be under a folder called panel, and they're in your symbol library. So there are tons of panel footprints already there. So definitely don't reinvent that wheel, utilize those. I would also challenge you that anything that's not already pre-built to be intelligent in electrical, most of the manufacturers have DWG format versions of their symbols on their website. So if you go out to Allen Bradley, or if you go out to Siemens, or if you go out to a Schneider Electric, they have those access points where you can look up that part number and you can see the cut sheets as well as the DWG file formats for those symbols. So you can even just use those and then turn them into electrically intelligent symbols. It's very easy to do in the symbol builder. If you use the symbol builder, it's a drag and drop of the attributes that you need to make them intelligent. So it's super, super simple to do that. So definitely don't try to recreate those. That's my advice to you. But we do ship. It's automatic, it's free, it's not extra cost or anything like that with all of those symbol libraries. So make sure that you look for those first before you start building them. Good deal.
We got a question from Hal. Title block rev question. Has anybody come up with a good way to do revisions per drawing?
Oh, Hal, this is a question that comes up, I feel like every other month. So great question. It's definitely something people ask about a lot. I have lots of answers for you. So we're going to give you options, but let's talk through this. So the first and foremost way that revs are typically handled from an AutoCAD electrical standpoint was a methodology that you don't rev per drawing, you rev per project. So when that happens, you have unlimited formats under your, and I'm just going to share my screen really fast to be able to show what I'm talking about here. You have unlimited ability when you right click on your project file. Oh, things are slow on my computer today because I have not restarted my computer in like 2 months, which is, don't do that. Just a warning to all of you, don't do that. Don't be me. But if you go to descriptions, so you can see this here, and I don't have rev listed, but these line items, if anybody who doesn't know what this is a format where we map our title blocks to these line labels. And these are project-wide line labels that allow us to map this and fill this out one time, and it updates all of the drawings in our entire project, whether you have 10 or you have 1,000. These things, you have unlimited lines that you can use. So I often update this to say, you know, line 10 is going to be Rev A, and then I have Rev A description and maybe Rev A date. And those all map to attributes in my title block. And then you can keep filling those out. So you can update those, but that would be revving across the project level, right? Now, on an individual level, there are a couple different things to think about here. I do have people who utilize the attributes that can be mapped from the properties of each individual drawing. So every drawing, these autostil can be automated in our automatic title block update. By the way, if you don't know me yet, I talk about this in like every class that I have. My favorite tool in electrical is the most simplistic thing ever, but it saved me a world of time in my very first job on one of my projects where I had to update 5,000 title blocks. And there's no way I was going to sit there and do every one of them manually. And I was able to do it all with this and utilizing these tools. So it's one of my favorite commands. It's our title block updates commands. But you can map individual drawing updates to this drawing properties screen. And a lot of people who don't need 3 lines of description, or who don't use, say, the sheet number or drawing number, most people use those, but section and subsection, now that we have folders over here, that used to be the only way to categorize drawings when we didn't have folder structure. They now don't use section and subsection for that. And these are open fields, and people will use these to fill out revs. So they'll call these revs, and they can update on an individual drawing level the certain revisions and descriptions. So you can, or even here with the IEC style designators, this is really for IEC format for those utilizing that format. But if you're using NFPA and you don't use these style designators, you can use these fields for other things. So there's lots of ways to get unique in revving if you want it on an individual drawing basis. The other advice I would have is to use Vault. So if you are currently utilizing Vault, you can do revision. There's all revision control in Vault. That's really what Vault was built for, was being able to do all that document management control, including revisions. And Vault can do that revving for you on an individual drawing basis. So lots of different ways to do it, but I just kind of wanted to walk through those different scenarios. And good to see you, Hal. I see you now. Hi.
So we have 100 and some odd drawings in our package.
Mm-hmm.
And usually we will keep revs for each drawing that's changed when we do it. And we have in the title block, there are lines for each rev with a description.
Okay.
Normally we put the little designator on the drawing so you could see that this line changed, this item changed, whatever.
Sure.
So the very first way you said could possibly work, except I'm scrolling through lots of crazy things to get to whatever page. And if I insert a page, then my whole sequence goes out the door. The second
Now,
way,
remember though, when you insert a page, there are lots of tools in there to be able to do updating of all of those numeric values, where you can do it automated and have it cycle through all the rest of the drawings downstream to take everything to the next drawing number, sheet number.
That project description that you showed at the very beginning,
Yes.
where I could change everything.
Yes.
It's not going to automatically go that if I said for page 1, this is Rev ABC, page 2 ABC, it's not going to know that I added a page. I skipped 3 before, now I put 3 in there.
True.
Right. So it's just, if I didn't make changes and I knew what I was doing all the time, that would be great. The second way with the page descriptions, what I'm also trying to do is come up with that table of contents index,
Okay.
the tool that you have to be able
Yeah.
to pull that stuff out.
Yeah, your drawing
automatically.
index report. Yep.
Right. So if I go ahead and start changing the designations of what I'm using for, like you said, on that page description, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't pull some of those into that table of contents, right?
There's quite a bit of things that you can do. So if we go to what you're talking about, I'll just close out of this. So if for anybody who doesn't know this, it's separate from all of our other reporting tools, which I know is a little bit funky because all of our other reporting tools actually sits under the reports pane. But when you right click on a project, you can actually say you want the drawing list report here. If I say that I want to do a new report and I pull all of my drawings, it still utilizes the same report generator that we use for all of our other reports, bill of materials, wireframe 2, all of those things. If you come down to this change report format, you have all of these available fields that you can modify and bring in to have it custom create what you want that index sheet to look like. And you can move around these. Obviously, you've got move up, down toggles that you can adjust. So there are a lot of designators you can pull in. Basically, everything that you can do from drawing properties can be in here. And then even data that's custom data into the full file name. It can parse that from the actual data of the file to pull that in.
Okay, so I'll have to take a look into that, because if I can pull everything from the drawing property sheet into there, then I can sort of figure out how to manipulate that around. So that's a
Yep.
good idea. The third option you talked about, Vault. So I'm a single user on my
Yeah.
single laptop. I'm
Yeah.
sitting all by myself. While Vault may be the ideal way to do it, I think
It doesn't make a lot of sense for you. No, no.
so. I'm always looking for how to do this before I set up my template and get everything done while I'm still playing with everything. So
Understood. Understood. Yeah, no, that I think that makes a lot more sense for why you would probably not do that with Vault. So I think probably your better bet is to go off of those drawing properties to find that way. And while I have my screen shared, I did notice somebody else asked when I was showing that for how to map those things, how I got to change line 1, line 2, line 3 to the actual labels of the attributes that you would associate this with. So this is foundational to you building your first templates. And if you've not been through this, I do walk through this in that training course. There's a lot of ways you can get support in this, but the foundation to setting up your drawing sheet really well and utilizing all these automatic tools is a multi-part process. And it's the first thing is updating these support files that we have. And so if I show you where I was in basic workflow. The file that actually links those line labels is this one. You need to just put a file in there. It's a text file. It's literally called default_WD title.wdl. Make sure you can see file extensions and you don't leave .txt at the end of it because it won't work then. So you make sure you have this. This can be named your project name _WD title, or it can be default and then used for all of your projects. If I double click on this, it is literally just a mapping file that says line 1 equals, and then you type whatever you want afterwards. I map what I link the line labels into to something that's very close. It doesn't have to be exact, but very close to what the attributes for my title blocks are. So if I were to go back into my drawing here and I were to look at my title block, the actual attributes in this title block, if I were to open this in a very basic attribute editor, which you never use in electrical, but you can see all of the attributes that are in this title block. So I have mapped from that, from this same file that I was just showing you. If I reopen my text file, you can see that this actually has, now I have way too many things on screen, hold on. Try to put these side by side. You can see that I had everything that is project based linked to filling out from these line labels. Now, everything like the drawing descriptions, those get mapped to your drawing properties. So when you first fill this out, you look at, okay, what is global? Like what's going to be all per project? And then what is per drawing? And you set your line labels up to match what you're going to match your attributes to. And then you set up the other attributes to map to the things that are in your drawing properties. And that mapping happens, if you've never seen this, there is a title block tool under your project-wide utility, and my Zoom control panel is in front of this. Hold on one second. If you go to title block setup, you basically choose the type of mapping file, and we can get into what those 3 types are. That's all part of installations. But and I'm going to just edit this one, but you basically pick your block. It automatically pulls in all of the attributes to your block into this editor, and then you start mapping. So you can see, I can see the attribute name and I can map any one of these to my line labels. It's obviously very painful if it just says line 1, because then I never remember what I mapped to line 1, what I mapped to line 2. So if you instead label those exactly what you're going to end up mapping them to, it becomes a really easy one-to-one. I just go, okay, this one's going to be title 1, this one's going to be title 2, this one's going to be title 3. And then for the drawing values, you're mapping to what are those fields automatically in the drawing properties dialog box. So in this case, the attribute that I have that's called DWG number, well, that's going to equal my drawing number that I already have a field for automatically inside those drawing properties. So that's how you set all of this up. Once this is done, it's done for life. You can actually have it be for multiple title blocks. So if I cancel this and I go back and I pretend like I'm going to do this brand new again, just to show you all of this, I'm going to overwrite. And it says you can start typing in your block names, right? If I pick this block, it brings in my block name. I could also put a comma and then start putting every other block. Maybe I have A size, B size, D size, C size, you know, whatever blocks and that are title blocks that I utilize. And all the attributes are the same. The locations and the size of the title block might be different, but that doesn't matter. This mapping file will work for all of them. So my other piece of advice to all of you is if your title blocks don't all have the same attributes in them, get that alignment, clean up your title block so that you can use one mapping file that works for every title block. It doesn't matter if they're in different locations. Maybe you've got a title block that is just the rectangle in the lower right-hand corner. Maybe you have one like the one you're seeing on the side of my screen. It doesn't matter where they're located. As long as the attribute names are all the same, you can use one same mapping file. If not, you'll have to create a couple different mapping files. So just a quick update there. And if you guys ever want to dig in more on that, there is tons. We could definitely do it on one of these calls, but there are tons of AutoCAD or of Autodesk University classes that I have done with another team member of mine. His name is Rob Stein, where we have taught installation tips and tricks for how to install and how to implement AutoCAD Electrical. And we go into all of that. And we have like a 40-page document that takes you through all the beginning testing, even exercises to do to get yourself up and running to do those things. So lots of content is out there for you to consume that's open sourced to be able to dig into that to do more of what I just showed. Okay.
I think I need to steal it from you.
Yep, no, I know we're 3 minutes in. So I saw a couple more questions. I'm sorry if we didn't get to them. Thank you for the questions. I appreciate it, everybody. We'll try to capture them afterwards or catch you on the next call. But over to you, Chris, because I know that I am almost at time here.
That's quite all right. You got a lively conversation. So as you can see, we've completed June and July's classes or sessions. We are going to be taking a break in August and coming back in September. The September session has not yet been scheduled, so we advise you to keep an eye on the Community Conversation website for when this session gets posted, and then you can RSVP for that. So if you're looking for other ways to connect with us in the community, we have a couple of resources to share with you. You can explore the various Autodesk communities, including the global network of user groups in the Autodesk Group Network, our industry-focused communities, which help colleagues solve business challenges together. Of course, the Autodesk forums are always a great place to go to learn and get solutions to your problems. And also stay connected with us on Twitter and Facebook, including several new Facebook groups that we've created. And with that, I want to thank everyone for attending today. Like I said, a very lively conversation. We probably could have gone another full hour. We're going to be sending out a survey in an email to everyone who attended today, and we'd love to get your feedback on the experience. We hope to see you stay connected in the community and that we see you here next time in September. So thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.